Okay, everybody, I hope you all can see me and hear me. If you can, please give me some type of thumbs up in the chat or some type of message to let me know that you can hear me and see me. Oh, all right then. There we go. So, had a little technical difficulties, but that's all right. I'm here now, and I'm so excited to be sharing with you. I'm just really excited, guys. It's Friday. It's March the 4th. And so many wonderful things are going on in life, despite what we may think is going on in life. We got some wonderful things going on. Number one, you're here. And the simple fact that you're here tells me that life has some amazing things for you. And so I just want to talk to you today. I have a few things I want to share. So nothing is going to really be scripted. I'm just going to talk from my heart. And if you know me, I do that quite a bit because, I don't want to be in a position where I feel like, I can't be the real me. I want to just talk. I just want to be Francis, and I just want to be able to share with you. So let me see. I see that we have Brenda on. And hey, Brenda, how you doing? Thank you for watching. What's up, girl? What's up? So I'm going to be peeping at my phone to see who's talking to me. And I'm going to be looking at my camera. And then I'm going to be doing some other stuff. So today, we as women, we have a huge responsibility in this world. We as women, we have carried so many things on our shoulders. We've carried burdens. We've carried heartache. We've carried success. We've carried work on our shoulders. We've carried our children on our back. We don't have them on the shoulder unless we got more than one, and then you may have one here, one here, one here, one on the back. But that's okay too, because we were made tough. You know how they talk about the Ford truck made tough? Well, women, we're made tough. We were made to carry life within us. You're talking about 9 months of carrying life. That tells me that we were made special. And the simple fact, because we were made special, I want you to recognize how special you really are. It's Friday. And a lot of times we say, oh, I'm so glad it's Friday. I get the day off on the weekend or whatever is going on. But I'm getting to the point where I want to relish in every day and not just get excited when Friday gets here and say, okay, you know what, it's Friday. I don't have to go to work the next day. I can just relax. And yes, we need to be able to relax, women, don't we? And if we have any guys that's coming on, that's great too. But I just want to celebrate the women. Now, starting the month of March is Women History Month. Women, we got a whole month. A whole month to be celebrated. And if you look at it, sometimes we think that we have to do something extremely special in order to be recognized. But the things that we do in everyday life is worth recognition. Anybody agree with that? We as women deserve to encourage each other, but we deserve to be able to get a little, pat on the back from ourselves. And why is that? It's because we do so much. We are the peacemakers in the homes most times. Now, the Bible does talk about the contentious woman. I hope none of us are contentious. But the fact is that it's most time the women that's holding the family together. It's the women who helps the little kids when they're sick in the family. It's the women who gets up a lot of times, especially in times past, cooking the breakfast, the dinner, the lunch, getting the kids off to school, helping with the homework, helping the husband, doing this, doing that, doing that. And then we came to the point where, we started being more empowered because we started seeing that there was something in us, something that was valuable, something more than just being a wife. And I've been a wife for almost 24 years. So you know what? Heads up, props to the wives. Props to the want to be wives. It is not an easy job being a wife, being a mother, working. But somehow we do it, don't we? Somehow we pull it off. It's the women most times that you find in the church the most, celebrating each other, trusting in the Lord. It's the women a lot of times you find up at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, laying prostrate on the floor, praying for the family, praying for the neighborhood, even praying for those who have wronged us. A lot of times it's the women. We hold it together. We are the helpmate of the man. And we need each other, don't we? So, Women History Month and March 8th is International Women's Day. So that's 2 times that we as women are being celebrated for an entire month. And then as a global set of women, we're being celebrated on March the 8th. And so what I found out also, though, there's another category that's not just specific to women, but women, hey, we're there too. Yesterday, March the 3rd, was International Writers' Day. Now, I know that there are some creative women in this circle. You're creative. You write. You preach. You teach. You help. See, we're always doing some things. We're always doing something. And sometimes we get so caught up doing things for everybody else that we forget about doing something for ourselves. We're like that Energizer bunny, running here, running there. We just don't know how to stop. So let's not stop, but let's sometimes pause. Let's sometimes slow down. Slow down and enjoy the day that the Lord has given us. And let's go out and high five another woman. Let our children see what being a strong woman is all about. See, a strong woman doesn't have to act like she doesn't feel. A strong woman, she's willing to cry. She's willing to be transparent. She's willing to show her vulnerability if it helps another woman or another person. See, you're worth being celebrated. And we want to celebrate each other. Now, I want to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart. And that's because of 2 things, like I said, International Women's Day and International Women's or National Women's History Month. I want us to talk about that and celebrate that. So, what I'm going to do is I am going to share from my heart, if it's okay with you. And if you have comments, please feel free to comment in the chat. I wrote the book, Overcoming the Emotional Stigmas of Infertility, Barren but Not Ashamed. Have you ever heard of it? Some of you may have. Some of you may have not. But I want to share some things out of the book. I want to tell you why this book is important, not just for those who are going through infertility, but for those who may have family members that are suffering in silence. Those who may not have any clue what we who are dealing with infertility go through. See, I want my book to do 3 things. I want the first thing my book to do is to help those who are dealing with the negative emotions from infertility, those stigmas. I want us to be able to get to a point where we no longer let infertility consume us. We no longer let it control our lives. I have said on more than one occasion that infertility is like a thief in the night. And if you let it, it will rob you. It will hold you at gunpoint and steal your joy, your peace, your happiness. But guess what? Infertility is not the only bad guy that's out there. There are other situations in life that causes these negative emotions. It doesn't have to be infertility. Infertility was my evil villain, right? And I also had another villain, and that villain lives in the house of my mind. I became my own tormentor, my own evil villain. And so women, when we're living life, sometimes we can get down on ourselves. And sometimes we can get discouraged. Sometimes we can go back and think about mistakes of times past that we made. And we beat ourselves up. Or maybe we have been in a relationship and we've been faithful in that relationship, but our spouse wasn't faithful to us. And so we go blaming ourselves, right? I wasn't pretty enough. Maybe I didn't get dressed up enough. Maybe I didn't do something right. Maybe I wasn't the best cook. Or maybe I wasn't good at this or good at that. Because if my husband or the person that I'm dating, whatever the relationship is, if that person wasn't faithful to me, maybe I didn't measure up. Maybe I did something wrong. We blame ourselves. If our children, and I know mothers, I know we go above and beyond for our children. We stay at the school, and I know I did. Them people knew me. Oh, they knew me really, really well. I was an advocate for my kids when they were in school, and I'm an advocate for my kids now. And I stayed at the school, and I stayed up late nights, helping with homework, doing the things that I felt as a mother, as a woman, I should be doing to help my kids to be successful. See, I came from a family of sharecroppers. My mom nor my dad finished high school. Smart as whips. But guess what? They had to leave school to help on the farms. Their parents were farmers. And so they were not able to finish school because they were needed to help. And so what they passed along to me and my other siblings were the hard work ethics and the importance of being entrepreneurs. They had their own farm. Even though they were not wealthy, even though they struggled, even though they didn't have much. Man, I'm telling you, for the first maybe 7, 8, 9 years of my life, I and my sister and brothers, we lived in an old shack. Anybody ever seen Beverly Hillbillies? That old shack that they came up from before they went to Beverly? That was my home. That's where I lived. I and my family was poor, but guess what? There was so much love there. I didn't even know that we were poor. I didn't recognize it until I went to school. And then kids began to let you know where you stand and let you know who you are and what you are not. So getting back to the parenting thing, you can work hard doing your best to be the best parent you can. And your children may go and make mistakes, make bad choices, make wrong choices, go completely opposite of what you taught them. And then sometimes you can get hard on yourself. Well, maybe I just wasn't there enough. I worked too much. I should have been at home more with my kids. Or maybe I should have talked to them more. Maybe I should have done this and maybe I should have done that. Blaming ourselves for something that our children chose. Or maybe we worked at work and we didn't get the promotion and we're thinking, I didn't measure up. Maybe I should have went to school, or maybe I should have got that degree or went back and got another degree. It must be me. I didn't get what I was wanting. Something must be wrong with me. Now, you may not be doing that, but I have done that. So when I talk about this book, it's not just about infertility. If you want to, remove the word infertility out and says overcoming emotions of whatever I'm going through right now. Whatever that is, overcome it. There are words in this book that will bring life into your situation. There are words in this book that will bring life to your family, bring life to your home, bring life to your health. I am going to share some comments, some reviews that I've received from this book. I have received reviews from ordinary people, so to speak, special people, people I appreciate. And I've received editorial reviews. See, when I wrote this book, I felt there was something really special about it. I originally was going to write a fictional love story, and I'm still going to write that. But the winds changed, and I felt led to do something else. And so I began to write this book, Overcoming the Emotional Stigmas of Infertility. And so I just want to share what people are saying about the book. I'm not going to read all of these comments, but I do want to read some. So here's some feedback from Book Life. It says, Jones, relatable and straightforward memoir with purpose, details her faith-grounded emotional transformation after years of secretly harboring grief, embarrassment, and self-judgment because she was unable to conceive. She arrived at a newfound perspective of value from an unexpected life path. Jones describes the emotional trials of navigating the roles of step and adoptive parent while feeling the absence of a biological child, as well as the financial stress that came with pursuing fertilization treatments. Jones's advice leans on developing a right mindset, encouraging readers to reframe against negative, self-defining beliefs and let go of the idea that having children makes a real woman. Jones's favors plain, accessible language, and she keeps her self-reflection in the realm of common sense, approachable thinking without diving into psychological theory. This, together with her stated identity as an African American woman from a large family of sharecroppers, means her story will connect with an audience that understands the desire to appear strong while managing internal pain. Readers who may not find appeal in expert-centered approaches that presumes whiteness as a default. Jones' honesty about the emotional conflicts that arose through her step-parenting experiences is particularly touching. Basic exercises at the end of the book offers less guidance than readers may need in order to use them effectively, but the frankness with which she shares her own struggles make her ultimate recommendation of a count your blessings approach to life intentional. And so that's just one of the reviews from a professional standpoint. Now, I want to read a couple of reviews that I received from my wonderful, wonderful readers, those of you who have purchased the book. So here's one of them. So when I started out with my husband, I too thought I would never be able to conceive. I finally unknowingly got pregnant and running around cleaning house like normal and picked up some weights. I felt this awful pain and immediately had to go to the hospital. Miscarriage, the doctor confirmed. I was crushed and confused. Long story short, I lost 2 and I birthed 2. But praise God, I was never jealous of anyone over anything. But seeing other women pregnant was probably the closest I have ever been. Ms. Jones' outlook and heartfelt explanation of her journey helped me realize I could actually finally let go of the guilt that it was because of me the reason I lost not 1 but 2. And even though I had 2 that survived, I still felt responsible. Thank you, lady. Your book is not just for those who never had children, but also for us who after failing finally succeeded, but still carried the barren burden. Now, I really appreciate that because, see, this the whole thing about it, is that just because you have children does not mean that you don't go through heartache. Heartache comes in every form and fashion. This is a woman who blamed herself. She said that she was the reason that she lost her 2 children. She blamed herself for years. But she was able to pull that off of her shoulder, to pull that monkey off of her back, and to feel free to not have to carry that burden any longer. See, those type of comments is what make me feel like what I'm doing is so worthwhile. I am so willing to open up the curtains of my life so that others can be free. I am here so that you can be free. So here's another one. It says Frances Jones' book, Overcoming the Emotional Stigmas of Infertility, Barren but Not Ashamed, is a must-read for those who have experienced infertility or anyone in need of overcoming negativity, emotional baggage, or toxic emotions. It is a book for both men and women. Her story brought healing, awareness, and gave so many powerful insights, tools, and strategies that one can implement on their journey to healing. As a Christian coach and licensed professional counselor, This one stays in the library as a reference. And that is just so heartwarming to me when I have other professionals that are giving me kudos for what I have written. See, I want you all to know something. There is a gift or a composition of gifts a compilation rather of gifts that lives within you. You were meant to do life-changing stuff. You are supposed to be going out there touching the world and making a difference in the lives of others. And just because you are perhaps an ordinary housewife, or maybe you're just a mother, or maybe you're just an employee in your mind, there is something that you have been given to do that you're supposed to be doing. And if you're not doing it, it's time that you start. But don't discount yourself thinking that you're supposed to be someone in the big leagues. See, Jesus didn't come from a family of well-known people per se. His dad was a carpenter. He was looked down on because he didn't come in the way that people thought he was supposed to. A king is coming. He's going to be in royalty, and he's going to save us from the tormentor that's been holding us back. But he came humble, and people didn't receive him because they looked for him to come another way. Well, guess what? People may look for you to come another way, but God says that there's a way that you should walk in, a way that you're supposed to be in, a way that you're supposed to be helping somebody else. I'm going to read one more review, and then we're going to move on. And so this one says, I just finished reading Overcoming the Emotional Stigmas of Infertility, Barren but Not Ashamed by Frances Jones. Frances Jones immortalized her journey through infertility with style and grace that will capture your attention as well as your heart. From the beginning to the end, I found my eyes glued to each page with an abundance of anticipation of reading the next page that followed. Because I experienced strength, encouragement, faith, joy, laughter, expectation, heartache, and grief, sprinkled with vast amount of love and family throughout each and every page. So I want you to kind of share some thoughts with me. And you can be honest about it. You know, are you dealing with something that's heavy? Are you dealing with hurt, regret? Are you blaming yourself for situations that occurred in your life? I know that life can throw some hard balls at us, and sometimes we don't know how to deal with it. Sometimes we who believe in the Lord Jesus, we who believe in a higher power than ourselves, who believe in God, sometimes we pray and we don't see an answer. And sometimes we pray and we still feel the hurt once we get up off our knees or we get up off the floor. And sometimes we wonder, is God listening? And sometimes we wonder, does God care? And if you're in one of those positions where you feel like giving up, I want you to hold on. I want you to find strength. I want you to lean on someone that you can trust and turn to someone that you can trust. Because women, we have some roads ahead of us. We still got pavement on the ground to walk. We still have miles ahead. And so we need to be able to get to a position where we can shake off the discouragement and shake off the hurt and shake off the pain. Are you feeling me? And maybe right now you're going through a season of blessings. But I know at some point in time you've been through a season of heartache. And if you have, and you've come out Because I was told once that either you're in a storm, getting ready to go into a storm, or coming out of a storm. It's a cycle. And sometimes those storms seem like they last a long time, don't they? But the scripture says weeping only endure for a night and joy comes in the morning. And once you receive that in the morning, so to speak, don't forget about the next person. You know, I was thinking about, with it being Women History Month, I was thinking about Harriet Tubman. Now that's a strong woman. She was strong. And I wanted to share, and you probably already know this, but maybe some of you that don't. So, Harriet Tubman, hopefully you can see that. She made 19 trips to help 300 people, including her parents, to escape through slavery. Now, Harriet could have been selfish. She was able to get out. And she could have said, I'm in the promised land. I've made it out. But she wasn't content. She could not rest in her spirit. She could not find consolation in her soul, knowing there were other people that she had left behind that was being tormented, mistreated, hurt, killed, destroyed, treated like animals. And so you know what she did? She mustered up the courage, and she found the strength, and she found the nerve, and she went back 19 times because she couldn't rest knowing that her people were still suffering. She made it out, but she looked back. And when she looked back, she looked up, and she saw that North Star, and it was her guide, and she let her heart lead her. There may have been some that didn't do that, but this woman did. She's my hero. She's my example. See, I hid my emotions behind a mask. No one knew how much I was hurting but me. My husband didn't even know how bad it was for me. My sisters didn't know. Yeah, they knew that I wasn't able to have children. And some of them may have known that I was seeking fertility treatments. And some of them may have known that I was hurting. But they didn't know the depth of it. They didn't know the torment that I was doing to myself. See, I was thinking, maybe it'd been wrong thinking, but I was thinking, they have children. How could they ever understand what it feels like never to conceive? How could they really relate to that? Barren, empty womb, no life, no chance, no blood running through anybody's veins because I couldn't conceive. No genetic people on my family tree, on my branch. No one to pass down my genes to. It ended with me. Not only was I barren in the womb, a part of my tree was barren. There was no leaves. There was no fruit. There was no life. And every time I thought about that, it hurt. Now, when I married my husband, he and I had full custody of his beautiful daughter. She was 4.5 years old when I met him. She was 5.5, maybe 5 when I married him. And because he had full custody, when I married him, full-time instant mom, boom. I didn't know at the time that I wasn't going to be able to have children, and I was so happy being a mother. And I couldn't wait. We got married November the 14th. 2 weeks later, it was Thanksgiving, and I could not wait to plan and cook our first Thanksgiving dinner. And I cooked so much food. You thought I had 20 people in the house. And it was only 3. And I cooked everything but one meal, which my husband cooked, which was green bean casserole. And at that point in time, it was the worst thing I had ever tasted. And I told him, don't you ever do that again. But now he's improved the recipe. And he's an excellent cook. But that was one meal he messed up. And so here we were enjoying Thanksgiving and excited about the future. So here I am, a full-time mom. We never used the word step in our house, and that was not because I was trying to replace the biological mother. I respected her dearly. But my daughter wanted to call me mom. And I didn't want to make her feel like she couldn't. I didn't ask her to. I didn't persuade her to. That's what she chose. And so I guess I was thinking, and my husband and I were thinking, that we didn't want to make her feel like there was a difference between mom and stepmom. There's just mom in my mind. There weren't any steps. I was her second mom. Her biological mother was her first mom. So she had 2 mothers, right? And so I remember our first Mother's Day. And our first Mother's Day, 1999, we in church. I used to sing in the choir, y'all. I used to sing in the choir, y'all. Now I'm just acting silly right now. But I really did sing in the choir. And I taught my daughter how to improve her singing voice. She had a beautiful voice, but I taught her strengthening lessons. And we used to sing in the choir together. Oh, it was such a rewarding feeling. And so I remember my first Mother's Day. We were going to go out to celebrate, and so we were at church. And my husband, he was a minister, and our little girl, they were sitting in the congregation, and I'm in the choir stand. And we did the singing, and all of a sudden church was over. And I had women coming up to me, congratulating me, saying, Happy Mother's Day. They knew it was my first one. I was so excited. And so this one woman came to me, her arms wide open, and she had this big smile, and she looked at me and she said, Happy Mother's Day, even though you're not a real mother. Wow. Can you believe that? I'm not a real mother because I'm not the biological parent. I'm raising the child with her dad full time. I'm there when she's not feeling well in the household. I'm helping her with homework. I'm tucking her in at night. I'm singing lullabies to her. I'm comforting her when she's afraid. I'm mentoring her. But I'm not a real mom because I didn't give birth to her. Wow. And so, a few months after that, I realized that I wasn't getting pregnant. Now, some people would say, you know what? Well, you only have been married a few months. Give it a little time. But see, I came from a very fertile family of women. My mom had 10 children. Her sister, one of them, conceived 10 times. She had another sister that had 7. All of my sisters have kids. All of my nieces, for the most part, have children. But I wasn't able to. And I began to talk to my husband. I said, you know what? I feel like something ain't right. I think I need to go get checked out. Now, I'm going to go back in my prior life before I met him. I was in college. And suddenly, so it seemed, I started having these excruciating pains during the first few days of my cycle. And it was so bad sometimes I literally could not walk. I would have to crawl from one room to another. That's how bad that pain was. But I didn't tell anybody because I thought that was normal. And I thought that talking about that time of the month was a private thing. So I didn't tell anybody. So month after month after month, I dealt with that pain alone. So after I got married, I went and got checked out, and I had been talking to the doctor prior to my marriage, but they thought I had pelvic inflammatory disease. And so that's what they were treating me for. But after I went to get checked out thoroughly, I was told that I had stage 4 endometriosis. Ladies, and if there are any gentlemen on the call, my reproductive system was so scarred. I have pictures. There were adhesions everywhere. And the scarring was so bad. The first time I had a laparoscopy twice, the first time my ovaries were literally glued to the back. And all the doctors could do was unstick them. They were able to run blue dye through one, but nothing through the other. And so the doctor put me on medication to try to kill the endometriosis with the hopes that I would be able to conceive. Of course, it didn't work. And so after a while, I went to a fertility specialist. And that fertility specialist, he said, well, it's been a couple of years. Let's do another laparoscopy. And I'm like, okay. I told him about the pain. And so he did it. And this time, my ovaries were glued to my front. It hadn't gotten better. And so I also was diagnosed with low egg reserve and low egg count. Wow. Triple standards against me, huh? But I didn't lose hope in trying to conceive. I went through those treatments, and I got the injections for the fertility treatment, and I showed up, and my husband was there. And every time I went to the doctor after a treatment cycle, I had to look at the sonogram camera and see an empty room once again. Another failed pregnancy test. Wow. Failure after failure after failure after failure. I began to feel like I was a failure. I began to believe that I must have done something wrong. See, this is a promise that I made to God when I was in college. I believed in the Lord. And I'm just being honest with you, ladies. I'm being transparent. I'm just being real. I'm going to take a sip of my smoothie. Mango. Real good. So, I was not a virgin when I got married. Wasn't. And so, I one time was afraid because the guy that I was with, he didn't use protection. And I was so scared that I was pregnant. And I remember talking to the Lord, and I said, Lord, don't let me be pregnant. I won't do this again. I won't do this again. I won't do this again. Lord, I won't do it again. Don't let me be pregnant. I won't do it again. Well, guess what? I did it again. And again. And again. Same guy. And so, fast forward, when I found out I was having challenges conceiving, my mind went back. Oh, you promised God that you wasn't going to do it again. You lied to him. You broke your vow. That's got to be the reason that you're not able to get pregnant. You did it. You caused it. That's what I did to myself. That's the torment. I blame myself. Have you ever blamed yourself for your situation? I know I did. So, if it's okay with you, I want to read some things out of the book, if that's okay with you. And I'm going to read a chapter called Accusalina. This is chapter 10. In my book, I I always like to have a quote. And the quote relates to that particular chapter. And so this is the chapter, chapter 10, and this is a quote by Louise Hay. And that quote says, "You've been criticizing yourself for years, and it hasn't worked. Try approving of yourself and see what happens." So here's the quote. And before I read this, I don't know how well you guys can hear me. I hope you can hear me pretty good. But I want to unplug something and plug in my microphone. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to step away for a second and plug this in. Okay. So, I'm back. So I want to read something from the book, and I'm going to put on my nerd glasses so I can read clearly. All right. So here's the quote. The quote says, "You've been criticizing yourself for years, and it hasn't worked. Try approving of yourself and see what happens." That's Louise Hay. So here's chapter 10. I had an enemy for many years. She was cold, heartless, manipulative, and persuasive. Her words were so powerful that they caused me to change how I thought about myself. She often lurked in the corridors of my mind while playing havoc with my emotions. I came to know her as Accusalina. Accusalina would raise her ugly head during times when things were not going well in my life. She had an awful habit of reminding me of my mistakes and holding them over my head. Accusalina was a tormentor throughout my life. She was more than willing to tell me how I didn't measure up or couldn't accomplish a particular goal. She even went as far as to say that I would never conceive a child, and proudly provided me the reasons why I didn't deserve to get pregnant. She was a liar in her own right, but I was so consumed with her accusations that I could not recognize it. I don't remember the day when Accusalina first showed up, but most likely she was always there. Doubt, blame, guilt, and hopelessness were the results of her handiwork. She tried to convince me that I wasn't worthy to have children because I had broken promises to God and disappointed the most important people in my life. She also made me feel like I was the oddball sister because I was the only one who couldn't have children. There were countless occasions when Accusalina would proclaim that I wasn't a faithful daughter. Many years after my dad's death, I was tormented by the painful memory of Father's Day 1993. While in college, I joined a small local church in the city. I was excited to be in the services and was dedicated to the pastor and his wife and their ministry. Instead of driving home from college on Father's Day that year, I decided to stay in the city and help out at church. I planned to go home the following weekend to spend time with my dad. That weekend never happened. My dad passed away the Thursday after Father's Day. I was devastated and completely caught off guard. Overwhelmed with grief and guilt, I made the drive to my parents' house. The guilt was too much to bear. I even dreamed that I was weeping furiously as I followed my dad lying on a hospital stretcher. I couldn't believe God would do this to me. I didn't go home that weekend because I believed I was needed in church and was doing something special for the Lord. I became very angry with God and began to rebel. I felt He had betrayed me. I knew in my heart that God was not at fault, but I was so hurt that I didn't know any other way to handle my pain. I also knew that rebelling wasn't the answer, but when you're overwhelmed with grief, better judgment can get thrown aside. I was eventually able to move past the anger, and although I asked God to forgive me, I didn't know how to forgive myself. I wasn't even sure I deserved to be forgiven. I carried that hurt and heavy weight within for many years. And as time passed, I found myself measuring the level of commitment and efforts I had made towards my parents. I was there to help them, especially whenever I was needed. But no matter how much I did, I never felt it was enough. I was fortunate to work for companies that gave me flexibility to take care of family matters when necessary. So I was the one who most often stayed long hours and spent nights at the hospital with our mom. Whenever I came home to see my parents, my dad always asked me to sing to him. I didn't know the words to most of the songs he requested, but I would try to sing them anyway. I would also do funny things just to make them both laugh. These were precious moments that made our time together special. The visits home became less frequent after I married and became a full-time mom. I was absorbed in trying to adjust to my new life, but whenever I was needed, I was always right there without hesitation. After my dad passed away, I would visit Mama as often as I could. She also came to my home for long visits. I look forward to having her stay with me, Chris, Gabby, and our grandchildren. We would spoil her and give her the royal treatment whenever she came. It was always a joy to have her in our home. My mom lived many years before she passed away, and her passing was another sad moment in my family's life. I recall the events that led up to her death. My mom was residing in Mississippi with my sister for quite some time. And on this particular evening, Mama had just finished eating ice cream with her daughter and her son, one of my brothers, of course. When she went to retrieve her Bible from her bedroom, she could do some reading. So that's what she wanted to do. And as she was coming back down the hallway, my sister noticed that Mama was walking strangely while trying to hold herself up with the wall. She realized that Mama had just suffered a stroke. She notified the rest of the siblings that she was taking Mama to the hospital in Memphis. I was babysitting my two oldest grandchildren, ages 4 and 1 at the time when I received the call. My daughter was working and needed me to keep them for her. I told one of my sisters to let me know when they had arrived at the hospital and that I would get there as soon as I could. I didn't want to bring the small children to the hospital at night, and I wanted to wait until my daughter got off work. My 3 sisters were at the hospital in a small room with our mom. She noticed I was not there and asked for me. My sisters told her that I would be there as soon as I could. Later that night, I received a phone call saying that Mama had slipped into a coma. I sent my daughter a text message explaining what had happened, packed up the children, and immediately went to the hospital. But by the time I got there, Mama had been moved to ICU. I sat in the hallway outside of the ICU and waited to see her. When my daughter left work, she came to the hospital to pick up her children. Over the next few days, I spent quite a bit of time at the hospital. Mama was moved out of ICU, into a room that allowed visitors to stay longer. Because the hospital was relatively close to where I worked, I was able to go there on my lunch breaks. I also went back to the hospital and after work. I sang to her, prayed over her, and talked with her during every visit. I also walked down the hospital corridors praying for the other patients who were on the same floor. I had never seen anyone in a coma before. Mama looked so peaceful lying there. A part of me wanted to believe that the doctors were wrong about her situation. Mama didn't look like she was in a coma. She appeared to be in a deep sleep and would wake up at any moment. I wasn't sure if she could hear me or even knew I was in the room, but I hope she did. I informed my managers at work about my mom. They were very understanding and told me to let them know if I needed anything. I told them that I needed flexibility to leave work if an emergency arose. Other members in the family took turns staying at the hospital. We made sure someone was always there in case Mama woke up. We also wanted to have someone there to talk to the doctors whenever they made their rounds. But on March 12th, my niece was staying at the hospital with Mama. She called me at work in great distress at 11:45 that morning and told me that a cold blue had been called on my mom. I quickly informed my manager about the phone call and rushed to the hospital. When I got there, I found my niece in the hallway crying. I tried to find out what was going on, but was not able to get a clear understanding from her. I rushed to the room to learn that my mom had passed away at 12:05, shortly after my niece's call. I stood looking at Mama in disbelief. She had recovered many times before, and I expected her to recover this time. I walked over to her with tears flowing and stroked her hair. I leaned over, kissed her on the forehead, and told her that I loved her. I began calling my other sisters and brothers to tell them the news. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. After the death of my mom, Accusarina showed up with her bag of charges. She tormented me with her usual messages, causing guilt and blame to rise to the surface again. You should have gone to the hospital sooner. Why didn't you just take the children to the hospital when you first received the news that your mom had arrived instead of waiting? Maybe then she would have known that you were there. How many times are you going to make that same mistake? Accusarina used every weapon in her arsenal. You should be ashamed of yourself. You didn't make time to be with your parents. You weren't a good daughter. What makes you think you deserve to be a mother? You didn't call and visit your parents enough. You were too busy going to school, living your life, and being with your family. Your children will do the same to you. Although my parents knew I would be there for them at the drop of a hat, thoughts entered my mind that maybe I didn't deserve children because I didn't visit as often as my parents wanted. I faced feelings of remorse, and I knew I should have made coming home more often a higher priority. Was my not being able to conceive some form of punishment related to this? I struggled with the thought, but also knew that Accusarina could be quite convincing. I felt so much anguish and regret. I loved, honored, and respected my parents. On both occasions of their death, I thought I had more time to be with them, but I hadn't. I hid my true feelings and pretended everything was fine, but it wasn't. That's chapter 10, Accusarina. I want you to learn something. I want you to know that guilt can cause havoc in your life. Blame can destroy the spirit and the soul. Hurt can cause you to make bad judgments. You don't have to live in darkness. You don't have to live with regret and remorse. I'm sharing my story because I want you to learn from my mistakes. I want you to understand that you can make a different choice. You can be different. You can do differently. I'm going to read one more chapter. While I'm getting to the chapter, if you have any comments about that one chapter, feel free to drop them in the chat. I would love to hear your feedback regarding it. Okay, so here we are. Chapter 16, titled A Real Woman. And the quote that I have is from Eleanor Roosevelt. It says, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." Let that sink in. You know how people try to make us feel bad about who we are? We even do it to ourselves sometimes. Well, guess what? No one can do it without your consent. The chapter starts as this. What traits does society require for a woman to be considered a real woman? The definition may vary depending on who you ask. Traits may include being strong, determined, intelligent, hardworking, dedicated, and successful. In my opinion, the biblical characteristics portrayed in Proverbs 31 are good examples. So here is it from the New International Version. It reads, "A wife of noble character who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instructions is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness." Now that's just an excerpt from Proverbs 31, and I love that part of scripture because, see, we as women, we can be so powerful, but sometimes we don't know it. And this is a reminder of who we are. Moving on with the chapter. These qualities are not specific to being married. The important thing to note is that the woman described in these verses knows her value. She is honest, giving, and helpful to others. There is an attitude of confidence. She carries herself with respect. She is wise and prudent over the things under her care. She makes good decisions and handles business responsibly. The definition that was used to describe a quote-unquote real woman when I was a young lady was quite different from the aforementioned list of traits. When I was 19 years of age, I was involved in a conversation with a female acquaintance. During our chat, we started talking about kids. She suddenly asked me, "How many kids do you want?" Without missing a beat, I immediately responded, "I would like to have 5 children." She said, "Really? You want 5 children? You're a real woman." And I thought to myself, really? Wanting to have 5 children made me a real woman? I beamed inside, believing that a desire such as this somehow made me special. It never occurred to me to question how having a certain number of children would qualify me for this illustrious title. Perhaps the woman felt that going through labor that many times took great strength and endurance. She may have thought it was incredibly challenging to raise several children. I didn't ask her why she felt that way. As a matter of fact, I didn't really care. I just enjoyed the thought of one day being a real woman. I knew several women who had multiple children. My mom and two of her sisters, who each had more than 5, were among them. I loved and respected these 3 women. I knew they were real women, and if giving birth to 5 children was a qualification, I would be honored. Life, with its sense of irony, did not allow me to birth 5 children, and not being able to conceive was a cruel joke to play. I often wondered, what would that woman say if she knew my truth? Would she take away the title that she had so graciously bestowed upon me many years ago? Was I no longer worthy of having it? Was I considered a failure when compared to the other women in my family? Tormenting thoughts entered my mind. You don't have 5 children. You don't have the 5 children you wanted. How are you going to have that many when you can't even conceive one? What's the real deal? What's the real woman you are supposed to be? Where is she? Accuser Lena has struck again. I made a huge mistake when I gave my acquaintance permission to define, qualify, and categorize me. She knew nothing about the gifts and talents that were within me, nor did she know the goals I had set for my life. She wasn't familiar with my strengths, level of intelligence, or creativity. But she was not the one to blame. I had accepted her words as truth and wore them as though they were a medal of honor. I allowed something so inconsequential in the grand scheme of life to consume me. I also made the choice to ridicule myself because of it. I caused this unnecessary pain and suffering. I had to be the one to change it. My being a real mom is not measured by the number of children I could bring into this world. It cannot be defined by others. As far as I am concerned, being a real woman is more about who I am inside. It is measured by my ability to sustain the positive force within, to overcome the challenges that life throws at me, and to rise above situations whether I can control them or not. Life throws some of its hardest blows at women, and we yet continue to stand. We may be bruised, tattered, and fatigued, but we are still standing. Women in general are strong. We have a never-ending resilience and determination to keep moving forward. No matter how difficult a situation is, we somehow find the power to endure in the face of adversity. That is the definition of a real woman that I live by each day. So, those are 2 chapters that I just wanted to share with you, both surrounding women, both surrounding International Women's Day, both surrounding national or international rather Women's History Month. And I just want to let you know once again that you are so much more than you realize. You have so much more to offer than you can even comprehend. Never did I think I would be on stage sharing my life. Never did I think that I would be on television sharing my life. Never did I think I would be doing the things that I'm doing, not to be seen as someone who gloats, but to be seen as someone who loves and who cares for others. That's my whole mission in life, my whole motive. So, I want to share a couple of exciting things that I am in the process of doing. Actually, it's already done. So, I found out today that my book is going to be featured in another bookstore in my city, Demoore's Books and Things. They sent me a message today saying that they wanted my book. They already have it online, and they just ordered several copies of my book to have in their brick and mortar bookstore. I was so excited because it gives me an opportunity to reach more people, to reach you, to help you, to show love to you. And I have said this before, if I don't help but one person, it was worth it. Now, the second piece of exciting news that I want to share with you is I am giving away 100 Kindle books. That's a lot of books. I'm doing it as part of honoring and acknowledging women on International Women's Day and Women History Month. I want to be able to let people know that there's hope, encouragement, love, and joy for you. I want you to be able to know that. And so this is me sowing a seed into the lives of 100 people. Now, I do not pick the winners. I don't have that option. So, in order for you to participate in this giveaway, I need you to go to Goodreads and register for my contest, or for my giveaway rather. Go out there, and if you're selected, and either Goodreads are going to select you or Amazon is going to select you. I'm not sure which one. I just know it's not up to me. But they will select 100 recipients. And once they select them, they're going to automatically send you the Kindle book. It's my gift to you. Like I said, why am I doing this? Why am I giving up profit to sow a seed? Well, for one thing, I know the power of sowing and reaping. It's not about the profits that I'm giving up. It's not about profits coming back to me. If I give out of my heart to you, and you get the book, and you learn the techniques, and you're able to overcome the emotional situation in your life, then I'm hoping that you will share that love with someone else, and you help them out of the darkness. You help them through the struggles. You turn around and pay it forward. I go back to what Harriet Tubman did. She made it out of the darkness, but she wasn't going to be able to rest until she went back. And she kept going back, and she kept going back, and she put herself in danger. But she was willing to sacrifice her own life to help somebody else be free. So here I am, a very private person, an introvert, someone who kept everything hidden. But if I did not share what I'm sharing, then to me it was like everything I have gone through was in vain. And I refuse to let infertility or life struggles cause me to be silent. And I encourage you to be the same. Now, you don't have to share to the transparency that I have. Everyone has a different journey. But if you know a woman or an individual who's struggling in an area that you have overcome, remember her. Go back. Help her. Be a Harriet Tubman. Go back. Remember and help another sister. Well, that's what I have for you today. I share love with you. Hope, encouragement, strength, peace, and joy. And I just thank you for taking time to be with me. I hope you go to Goodreads and register for my giveaway, 100 Kindle books. I hope you register. I hope you become one of the winners. But if, by chance, you're not one of the recipients, I want you to take away the words of knowledge and wisdom that I have shared today. I hope my book that I've read, the chapters, will bring enlightenment to you. I hope that you find peace in your situation and you share that peace with somebody else. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Thank you so much for spending time with me, and I'll talk to you later. Bye now.